Hi girls, unfortunately last week I made another mistake in which I didn't actually submit the video in which I discussed the break-even point. So I basically gave it to you earlier, but I'm just going to quickly go for it once again. So as I said last time here we've got our y-axis, okay, which basically indicates the level of money. And our x-axis, on the other hand, indicates the level of output, so units, okay, so stuff that we're selling, okay. And we've got this horizontal line here, which is blue, which represents the fixed cost, and we know that that's because the fixed costs do not vary, okay. So let's imagine our fixed cost is 100, okay. So let's imagine the amount of money is 100 here. We know that's not going to change in time, no matter how many outputs we sell, okay. Then we know that total costs take into account, so this red line here, take into account variable costs, which we know will change in time as the number of output goes up, okay? And we know that since total costs take into account fixed costs as well, instead of starting from the origin, we're starting from here. That's why we're starting here, just because we're taking into account fixed costs as well. And then the last thing we need to remember is this green line here, which represents sales revenue. Of course, the more I sell, so the more basically stuff I sell on this x-axis, the more money I'm going to get. So this is why this is upward sloping. Okay. Now, the break-even point, as we know, is found when we have a situation in which our sales revenue equals our total cost. That's why this intersection point here represents a break-even. Now, the final thing I wanted to say is that if I want to calculate via the method of the graph my break-even point, and I need to find out the number of units, I can't just like find this spot here. I can't just find this point here. I need to basically draw this perpendicular line until I reach this point here. And normally I'll be given a number, okay, here and here. Normally there's numbers on the x and y axis, but it's not here. Sorry, I actually made a mistake. But normally you have a number here. So if you want to find the number of break-even units, you literally find this point here, and then you go down, and then you find the number of break-even units. Okay, that's literally it. Now, this is the last kind of bit that I needed to show you in terms of the drawings. Just literally remember what I'm going to tell you now. Here we've got a situation in which you have to discuss, this is something that might come up in the exam, what these bits here are, these coloured in bits here. So what you're going to have to do is basically remember that when you find a situation in an exam in which this is coloured in, remember that this is the profit area. Okay, I don't want to complicate it too much, just literally remember the way I'm telling you. Whereas this bit here is the loss area. Okay, so you've got to know basically what this line represents, what this line represents, what this one here represents, where the break-even point is, how we find break-even units. In this case here, we look at the break-even point here, and then we draw this perpendicular line. So the number of break-even units is going to be 2000, okay, because we literally are drawing the line from here to here, okay? And then we just need to remember that this area here is going to be our profit area, and this area here is going to be our loss area. And literally, if you remember that, then you'll be able to answer this question right. Okay, so sometimes you've got a scenario in which the graph is totally like blank, and you have to explain what areas, so what the various bits, what the lines and what areas are called what, so which one represents what. Sometimes you just have to basically label the graph. Okay, now final thing, the margin of safety. Okay, so the margin of safety is a concept that is super easy, and again, you just have to memorize it. It is simply the difference in units between the actual outputs that we sell and the break-even outputs. So if, for instance, this is the formula that you need to remember, literally just that. Okay, so margin of safety is actual sales minus break-even sales, and you'll get your answer. So say I'm selling sandwiches and my break-even output is 800. If I sell 1,200, then my margin of safety is, you literally just do your actual sales, so how much you've actually sold, so 1,200, minus your break-even output, and you get 400. That's literally it. The final thing that you need to remember is that you can also find the margin of safety if you're given a graph. Sometimes you'll be given a problem numerically. Sometimes you have to draw it on a graph and then find it. So you need to know, basically, you need to learn where these like lines go and what they represent. And you also need to know that this is the loss area and this here is the profit area. Okay. Now, the last thing you need to remember is how to find out the